Sheikh Dr. Shahul Hameed, who is all the way from Malaysia. Yeah. Over to you, Sheikh. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa bihi nasta'een. Wa salatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Okay. Last week, we started our discussion on the capital market, and we concentrated on the equities market. And then today, inshallah, we will go and see another part of the market, which is the Sukuk market, which is the Islamic alternative to bonds. Okay. So basically, Sukuk has enabled the development of debt markets in Muslim countries. Last time, in the capital market, there are two. One is equity, the other one mainly is the bond market. Now, of course, bond is a loan, interest-based loan. So that is of course haram because it's contains riba. So that the bond, the Muslims cannot go and participate in the bond market. But the development of Sukuk has given actually an opportunity for Muslim investors to have actually basically we buy bonds because we want a fixed return. So we don't take risk on our return, like in Mudaraba, depends on the profit or loss. And you know, Musharaka, and then Mudaraba, you know, if the loss is, we have to bear the loss if anything happens. So people who are, let's say, they are, you know, retired, they have some money, they want to invest, okay, they cannot, you know, work anymore. So their only option is either you have property and rent it out to get a fixed return, or you can go and get a, you know, Sukuk, which has a sort of, you know, most Sukuks have a fixed rate of return, which is halal because the underlying return coming from halal assets. Okay. So basically, the Sukuk market has been fueled by tax reforms and Malaysian government has given a lot of incentives. I'm talking of Malaysia not because I'm in Malaysia, because Malaysia is the first one to issue Sukuk in the world, and then the others followed later on, and then become a very global activity now. Okay, we will cover these 4 items today. So Sukuk, what is Sukuk? Sukuk is the plural of sak. So jam is the plural in Arabic. So Sukuk is the plural of sak. So Sukuk is a individual thing. So it refers to an investment certificate. Okay, it can also mean a trustee certificate. So basically Sukuk, the word check actually they said to come from the word sak. Because it has been used in the Middle Ages as papers denoting financial obligations for commercial activities. Okay. And actually, it's recorded in Al-Muwatta of Imam Malik bin Anas. He describes the use of sak by the Umayyad government at that time. Okay. So sak was used as partial payment to soldiers. This is just some history and government servants. So, and it came to be known as grain permits because it entitled the holder to get a predetermined amount of grain from the Baitul Mal or state treasury on the maturity date. Okay, so it's basically partial payment of salary. Okay, since the sak represents a state obligation, so the government guaranteed it. Therefore, they were traded and exchanged among Sukuk holders. Okay, and became a tradable instrument. That means if you don't want to get the Sukuk at the commodity at the end of the maturity period, you can sell it and get money, and they can use that Sukuk to go and get the grain at the end of the maturity period, the maturity date. So Sukuk is defined by the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions in Bahrain. They issue Sharia standards, and the Sharia standard is they define Sukuk as certificates of equal value representing undivided shares in ownership of tangible assets, usufruct, and services. What it means is, let's say you have a $1 million issue of okay, you want to get some $1 million, okay, so you divide it into shares of $1,000 each, okay, 1,000 times I suppose 100 or 1,000 is 1 million. So so everybody will get this as each certificate is equal value, but one person can own more than one certificate. So if you want to earn a $100,000 of the $1 million issue, you can own more than you can own what you call 10 certificates or 100 certificates to get $100,000. Okay, so so it has to be of equal value. So it's easy to trade and all that later on. So Sukuk has been referred to as Islamic bonds and subject to comparison with conventional bonds. But actually, they all might be compared to bonds. There are many differences between these two instruments, i.e. Sukuk and a bond. So firstly, there is no such thing as debt financing in Islam, no? Because the only debt there is in Islam is Qadr Hasan, which is a benevolent loan without interest. That obviously won't work in commerce. Okay, so that is so, and then it does not have a fixed return payment. So even okay, yeah. So you cannot, bonds have fixed return payments. So Sukuk cannot have return payments unless the underlying instrument is like a fixed payment, like a ijara, which is rental or something. Okay, so that will lead to fixed payments. Okay, so this is some statistics on the global issues of Sukuk. So you can see that from 2000 it started in Malaysia, and then from 2 billion or $3 billion US dollars, it became now 188 billion. I think now it has even increased in 2023. Okay. Okay, so there are certain underlying principles, Sharia principles that Sukuk must comply with. Okay, this is in addition to all the basic requirements of not containing riba, gharar, rishwa, which is corruption, maisir, and jahar. Okay, ignorance. So, what are the additional requirements? All funds raised through the Sukuk must only be used for halal or Sharia compliant activities. So you cannot fund a gambling company or liquor company and so on. Okay, that's a given. Then the funds raised are used to finance needed tangible asset. I mean, you must buy an asset, or you base it on, nowadays they even base it on intangible asset like time value of, let's say, the telecommunication industry they use. But I'm not sure that that is actually Sharia compliant, but some scholars have deemed it so. Okay. So there should be some asset to back it. Okay. You cannot use Sukuk to fund general funding like working capital. You can, but there has to be an underlying asset to do that. Otherwise, so you have to be specific. The asset must be specific. All right. Income received by Sukuk holders must be derived from the cash flow generated by the underlying asset. You cannot use other sources, So sometimes they use Sukuk to just they want to get some financing, and they actually don't get any in return from the asset, but they use some other method to pay then it becomes basically a bond. So Sukuk holders have a right to the ownership of the underlying asset and its cash flows. Okay. So Sukuk from this perspective is a hybrid equity. Hybrid means it's a combination of which has like equity features like a share feature and also the bond features. So it has both that's why it's called a hybrid. Okay. There should be clear and transparent specification of rights and obligation of all parties in the transaction. In particular, the originator is called the Mudarib and Sukuk holders. Okay. As with all other Islamic financial instruments, there should be no fixity of returns. Okay, you cannot fix the returns unless that the whole thing is based on a rental arrangement, ijara arrangement, then you can have a fixed return. Okay, but if actually the rental is lower than expected, then basically it's an indicative rate. Actually, 5% means not actually, because it depends on sometimes. For example, when the COVID came, lot of assets could not give rental, so they have to no return. So in this case, they cannot give return to the Sukuk holders. Okay, so it's not like a debt. Whether the guy makes a return or loss, you get your return. That's not on. because it's an Islamic instrument, there must be underlying rate to give a sort of fixed return. If there's no rental, then there's no return. So there are key differences between Sukuk and bonds. Let's take a look at them. Conventional bond, they are short, medium, and long term. Sukuk is mostly short and medium term, but no, it can be more than 5 years for infrastructure projects. For example, the toll-based roads, okay, the people issue Sukuk to build, operate, and transfer. So maybe it's 50 years. And these long-term investments are very good in the sense that they give stable return to the Sukuk holders using an ijara, this thing, okay? So financing category, this is conventional bond is debt, but here it's not debt, but ownership of specific assets and cash flows. Underlying asset is not necessary for conventional bond unless they are collateralized. Okay, but here Sukuk must have an underlying asset, usually a tangible asset. Claim is fixed in time and amount, but in the case of Sukuk, ownership claim on a specific asset and its cash flow. So you cannot demand, let's say in COVID, they didn't get rental. No, I say I want my return. You cannot, because this is an Islamic instrument. So the pricing of the Sukuk, because in the market, secondary market will depend on the demand and the yield and so on. But in the case of Sukuk, they use indicative yields, not a benchmark on reference rate. It's not a actual bond type of yield. Total return fixed income on a split, okay, and here no guarantee in returns, okay, and then because it depends on the underlying, even if it's rental, underlying rental must come. And for conventional bond, you can use it for anything, any industry, but here it's only restricted for Sharia compliant assets. Okay. All Sukuk must by definition have an asset that is tangible, although some fuqaha allow a portion of the asset to be in intangible form like debt. Okay. So there's an important differentiating feature of Islamic finance, design and a source of strength. Okay, since the requirement for an underlying asset precludes the possibility of excessive leverage. You might know that leverage is actually the portion of the financing in terms of debt instruments as opposed to equity instruments. Okay, so that's called the leverage or gearing. In Britain they call it gearing. Okay, so while an underlying asset is indeed necessary for Sukuk, not all assets qualify to be underlying assets. Okay, so according to Fiqh Academy, any halal asset or collection of assets can be underlying for a note or a Sukuk. So you don't have to be one single asset, but a collection of assets, but it has to be specified which asset. Okay. So Sukuk can also be sold provided that underlying asset consists mainly of tangible physical assets, with minimal, if any, part of it being cash. Because if a lot of the assets are cash and debts, then when you go to the secondary market, you are actually trading debt. So trading debt by a dime is not allowed by most fuqaha, although it is allowed in Malaysia. Malaysia is a bit weird. Okay, so maybe they are not very strict in following the Sharia, but I think in Middle East also has become a bit liberal these days. Anyway, so Fiqh academic rule are not binding because we don't have a distinct structure like a UN or what, but it's advisory. Yeah? So if you don't follow the Fiqh academic's ruling, you might not get the market to accept that thing. So then we have something called securitization, where is the process of pooling assets, usually debt instruments, and then issuing new asset, which is backed by pooled asset. This is what led to the CDO, the crash in 2008, market crash. And this is not allowed in Islam in the sense of, unless the assets are not debts, it's a tangible assets, okay? So any asset that has a cash flow can be securitized. And the resulting instrument of the securitization process is called asset-backed security or ABS. Okay, as I say, the Malaysian Security Commission accepts principle of Biodine. Okay, it's accepted based on the principle of maslahah or public interest. You can, sometimes people stretch the public interest thing or maqasid sharia a bit. So it depends on the individual how pious and taqwa they are, to accept this fatwas of some bodies or some ulamas, So wattaqullaha wa yu'allimuna. No, wattaqullaha mastata'tum, Allah says, be fear Allah as much as you can. Okay, so it's left to you whether you want to accept this fatwa or not. Okay, so it is possible to securitize a sukuk based on a receivable if in case of Malaysia. So a sukuk basically is a Sharia-based contract. Okay, and there are many type of contracts which can be sukuk can be based. Ijara is based, murabaha, profit markup sale, wakala, agency contract. Is this now maybe manufacturing or progress-based arrangement? By salam, musharaka, partnership, and mudaraba, profit and loss sharing agreement. Okay, of these contracts in Malaysia, sukuk based on murabaha appears to be most popular in Malaysia because it's easiest, but it's too near to fixed income sort of thing. Therefore, it transfers the risk basically. So it's a bit mourned by the very pious people, but it's still allowed. So alhamdulillah, globally, ijara-based sukuk are now most. I think ijara-based sukuk are the most Islamic of all the sukuk instruments because basically you get a fixed return more or less, and then and this is completely halal because if the underlying asset is halal, then these fixed daily payments are actually it's halal also. Okay, and then the popularity of ijara sukuk is reflected in the fact that just about all sovereign sukuk ijara have been oversubscribed. That means sovereign sukuk means sukuk issued by governments, not companies, not private companies, but government. And because they are guaranteed, okay, and also it's a fixed return, therefore they always oversubscribe. Oversubscribe means, let's say they issue 10 million, but people apply for 100 million, so that means it's oversubscribed more than what is, offered. So here are the global sukuk issuance by type of contract from 2010 to 21. So you can see from here that the most famous one is Murabaha. I think this is because mainly because of Malaysia, but actually Ijara also substantial part. I think we should go for more of this than this, okay? But it's not completely haram, so it is halal, but it's a bit of a wishy-washy thing. And wakala also is another thing which also will be halal, okay? I'll explain later a bit. So different type of sukuk. Let's say you look at ijara sukuk. So here, lessee of the asset, originator, investor is the lessor, periodic lease payments is the cash flows, and maturity from sale of assets. So at the maturity, you sell the asset, you get the money back. Wakala is an agent undertaking investment in underlying asset. So he is the principal owner of the invested asset is the sukuk holder, and cash flows generated by the investment, and this is paid back to the sukuk holders. All right. Mudaraba sukuk is, just like a normal mudarib, okay? So the originator mudarib is the guy who controls this, and the investors are the Rabul Mal. And this one is not fixed return. It depends on the profit sharing ratio and also the returns from the investment. Unfortunately, in Malaysia and maybe some other countries, they make it in such a way that this actually becomes a fixed return type of thing, which I don't think, I'm not comfortable with it personally. All right. It's not actual mudaraba, it's sort of artificial mudaraba. Istisna sukuk is you purchase an asset under construction, and once the asset is delivered, you sell it for murabba or something, and profit from the sale of the completed asset is where the sukuk holders get their return from. Okay, murabbaha is buy and sell the asset, and periodic payments from the mudarib will be given until the price of asset and markup is finished. Okay, that is the fine. Okay, now There's a difference between asset-backed and asset-based sukuk. Now, in generic asset-backed, the mudarib, who is the originator, first established a special purpose vehicle, which is a legal entity, and originator and then injects or transfers the asset, which will come underlying asset of the sukuk to the new assets SPV, special purpose vehicle. Since the collateral for the sukuk is the SPV's asset, the sukuk is asset-backed. That means if something happens, the sukuk holders can demand that the asset be sold and they pay back their money, okay, what they have invested originally, right? So here is a diagram of asset back. So you have this mudarib, the originator, he got the asset, okay, and he pledges it, okay. Actually, sometimes it can be a government, this one. So they have a parcel of land, they pledge the asset to an SPV, special purpose vehicle, and then the SPV issues a sukuk, asset-backed sukuk. The sukuk holders gives the money to buy the sukuk certificates, and okay, and then this land is maybe rented back to the in the case of government, is rented back, is leased back to the government, and the government pays periodic rental to the SPV, and this in turn is after deducting the expenses, these periodic dividends or rental payments are given to the sukuk holders, okay. And there is a trustee to provide oversight, or it's a sort of like an auditor, trustee, to make sure that everything goes fine, because not everybody can participate in this management of this. So the trustees do act on behalf of the sukuk investors. Nijara sukuk, okay. The mudarib begins with the establishment of the SPV. SPV issues sukuk to investors. I think we just looked at this. It's similar to the asset-backed sukuk just now, okay. So let's look at wakala bil istihmal. Istihmal means investment. So basically in this structure, the issuer or obligor is a wakil or agent of the sukuk holders. The agent is tasked with the sukuk proceeds to invest. So when the sukuk holders give the money to invest, the guy has to use it in a specific project or business, manage it, and provide a return to sukuk holders based on the returns of the investment. And he gets a wakala or agency fee, okay, based on the wakala agreement, okay. So the obligor, which is the issuer, is entitled to a fixed or variable fee from the profits of the investment, okay. He is also entitled to enter into other contracts like mudaraba, ijara, etc. with other parties in the course of undertaking and managing the investment. So wakala contract as of late become very popular given its flexibility, okay, right. So here's an example, the diagram showing the wakala with istihmal base. So we have an obligor wakil. Okay, first, number one, they make a wakala agreement with the established SPV. So SPV becomes actually the entity of the sukuk holders. All right. Number two, you issue the sukuk to the sukuk holders. These guys, they pay the money, dollars, okay. And then the obligor wakil takes these dollars, invest in a project, maybe build a road, build a mall or something like that. And then they rent it out, okay, or they get profits from this investment. So, okay, it goes back to the wakil, and okay, and then the wakil, so the wakil will take the wakala fee, less the wakala fee, he will put that money back into the SPV, and from the SPV, the sukuk proceeds, that is the dividends will go to the sukuk holders. Okay, just a little bit more time. So the first sukuk issuers were in Malaysia, and the first sukuk in the world was by Shell Petroleum Company. Okay, and it is based on a buy Bistaman Ajil contract, which is not valid in the Middle East. It is like a murabaha, but there are some issues here in the BBA contract, like by Al-Ina and so on. So this is not valid. Now I think even Malaysia has shifted from BBA to what you call murabaha. Okay. So this was 2 tranches, 5-year maturity for 75 and another tranche for 50 million for 8 years. Tranche means you give the money at a certain point in time, okay? So 2 tranches mean 2 times you the issue Sukuk, and then you get two times the proceeds going to the investment. Second one was Musharaka contract by Sarawak Shell for 600 million. And then the third one is ringgit denominated Sukuk by Petronas. Petronas is the national oil company of Malaysia, but this is the trading subsidiary of the company. Okay, they issued a 300 million Sukuk. Okay, so global Sukuk, the first global Sukuk denominated in the US was this Guthrie is actually a very large company in Malaysia. Used to be traded in the London Stock Exchange, and Malaysia made a raid, and then they got that part, the back. So because the assets are always in Malaysia, but the British were making the money. So Mahathir did a very good job. He just took over, surprise, and they had to amend the securities law after that because of this attack. Okay. So here, okay, so this is just I think Ijara based Sukuk. Okay. So then Malaysia issued this sovereign Sukuk for 600 million in 2007. This is the first sovereign Sukuk, and it's based on the Ijara concept, where the government loaned land parcels and they sold it to the SPV. SPV leases it back to the government. Then the government uses the fund to build hospitals, school, whatever, and they pay a monthly rental to the SPV. Okay, and then at the end of the maturity date, then normally they will sell back the SPV will sell back the land to the government, and the proceeds will be given back to the Sukuk holders, their capital. Now there is some problem with this finalized sale price. Actually, from Sharia point of view, you cannot define the sale price because in future sale price will be less or more. But normally what they do is they fix the price. Okay, so maybe in terms of what you call they use a wa'ad instead of a sale. So the Sukuk holders will make a what you call an obligation or wa'ad, or they will take an oath that they promise that they will sell it back at this particular price, and they have to do it. So the difference between wa'ad and contract is a bilateral agreement. Both sides must agree, whereas the wa'ad is a one-sided promise. Okay, if it's two-sided promise, it becomes an agreement, a contract. One-sided promise is a wa'ad. Okay. All right. Okay, I think I can stop here. I think we already discussed this. Okay. So one of the later Malaysia is using a lot of the Sukuk for toll-based roads, and India can actually use Sukuk, but of course, Hindutva government will not allow that, unfortunately. But actually, they can use Sukuk and get the Middle East money, or even Indian Muslims have money to invest, they can use, but for political reasons, it's not done. So you can use it to build airports, to build infrastructure development, very good, railways and so on. It's very good to use Sukuk. That's the best way to use Sukuk in the capital market. I think I'll end here. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.